I'm Gundula. I'm a gardener at Babylonstoren, and I am very happy to share this For the Love of Tea live ceremony with you. Live ceremony, that sounds great.
Sounds very festive.
Debora here is my colleague. She's joining us. She has a complete passion about our local Rooibos and honeybush teas, so we're going to dive into that quite a lot. And I'm sharing some of the more herbal teas that we have. So we're very keen to have your input. We will be looking at your comments, so please send questions. We'll be referring on my phone to them. And yeah, it's a lovely day here. We're at the Fynbos Cottages, which is part of our hotel. It's nestled here amongst all these lovely Fynbos plants. We've had a very nice, wet few days, so everything is glistening and fresh, and the scent of the Fynbos is really strong here. So we feel comfortable and cozy, and happy to share with you today. Debora, we've got pots of teas here.
I've got lots of tea, Gundula, and like you said, I'm very passionate about our South African Rooibos and honeybush tea. For me, as a child, I like to engage with everybody's Rooibos or honeybush story in South Africa. For me, I grew up with the enamel pot on the stove, and the flavor of the tea would intensify with the day and the color. Yeah. And so as a child, it was a sweet comfort. And then what I love about Rooibos tea is how it grew and evolved with me. When I was a student, I had it as a anti-stress during exam times or before I went to bed. As a young mother, I used it for hydration and for me and for my children. Often used it in the bath for my son for his eczema. And now in my own home, with my children, we use it for so many different occasions. We use it as our tea or our go-to tea for family discussions, for tummy ache, for heartache, for celebrations, and before we go to bed. So in our house, tea really always is a good idea. And I've met a lot of people who have the same specific stories with Rooibos and honeybush tea.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, we all have these tea memories, and it's just so part of the rituals we have during the day. Yes. But I noticed you really like making iced teas.
Yes. So what I like to do as well, for the children, if I have some leftover tea in the pot, keep it in the fridge for the next day, and then I do honeybush teas. This one, I did a Rooibos tea, goes very well with citrus.
Okay.
And I like to use a freshly cold pressed juice that we do on the farm in our juicery. Yeah. I add it for color and for a natural sweetener.
Yeah.
So in 1 liter, 4 tea bags, I do a very simple recipe.
Yes.
1 liter, 4 tea bags. When the water's cooled down a little bit, I add a raw honey. Automatically, you have a lot of health properties in this cold brew, or in your cold iced tea. Then, when the water's cooled down, add the honey and then the juice to taste.
Okay.
Yes. And that also adds a seasonal component, natural dose of vitamin C.
Yeah.
And for this tea, I like to pair the honeybush with the pomegranate juice. Because the honeybush is not naturally astringent, but the pomegranate juice adds a bit of astringency. Yeah. This is more of a grown-up iced tea. I add some slices of lemon for acidity. And you can serve it on ice. You can add some of herbs. We'll get to the herbs now, but I like to play with herbs in my iced teas as well. It looks pretty, but it also brings some extra flavor. And that's it on the iced teas. I like to keep it simple, but add seasonal ingredients. And every time I make it, it's something different.
Okay. I'd love to try the one with the pomegranate.
The grown-up one. And you can serve it with sparkling water as well. It's
Thank you.
You can make it really pretty and play with the flavors.
Oh, it smells divine. Wow.
Honeybush, yeah.
But we also grow a really special honeybush here. I mean, I think many people don't necessarily realize, but we're very fortunate that we actually grow Rooibos tea and honeybush on our mountain slopes. And it's quite unusual. They're doing really well.
Very. It was one of the biggest surprises when I started working here was to learn that we grow our own Rooibos and honeybush. And I was very surprised when I saw and when I tasted these teas, because Rooibos is traditionally grows in the Cedarburg region in the mountains with a sandy soil. And honeybush, there are very specific parts of the country where it grows. So this is not a typical area for Rooibos and honeybush to grow. And then we started profiling the specific taste of our Rooibos and honeybush and learning more about the flavor composition. We have a very, very special honeybush blend that we produce at Babylonstoren. Interesting fact, before I talk more about the flavor profile, just to put it in perspective for you, Rooibos is always made from one species, Aspalathus linearis. And that's your Rooibos plant from the Cedarburg. It's always made using this one species. And it's got a typical flavor profile. Rooibos from different areas can taste differently, or the different years have a different taste profile, but it's that one plant. For honeybush, there's different publications indicate different amounts of species that you can use. 24 was the last one I saw. There's 20 different Cyclopia species that can be used to produce honeybush tea.
Yeah.
So a lot of different flavor profiles. 5 of those are commercially used. So at Babylonstoren, we have the Cyclopia subtonata and Cyclopia longifolia, and we produce a blend, which gives a beautiful color, but also I find the combination of these two species grown in this specific area gives a lovely flavor profile. Your subtonata has got a sweet floral component to the aroma and also a caramel, so it's your more grounding, your more heavier flavor profile, where the longifolia is more lighter and more floral. Yeah. And I find that the combination works very well.
Yeah, it's really such a full-bodied aroma. Yes. I mean, even just smelling the tea bag. Yeah, and you can get it in this cup here. It's wonderful.
And I'm going to pour you a cup of the honeybush as well.
Please, yes.
That I've been brewing, and I'm ready to have this now. Interesting thing about honeybush that a lot of people don't know is, or often people say they don't like honeybush. It's not strong enough. But you have to brew it for at least 10 minutes to get a proper infusion. Yeah. And do you get
yes, totally.
The floral? So for me, this honeybush is a lighter tea or a lighter honeybush, but not because it still has a very complex flavor profile.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So you can pick up on the complexity, but it's quite light because the woody flavor is not as strong.
It's less tannins almost. It's got that. Yeah, I love it. Almost caring quality that it has.
Very comforting, but at the same time, very floral and very light.
Yeah.
Our Rooibos has got a very strong woody component. Our specific Rooibos from Babylonstoren. Yeah. Also floral, your typical Rooibos flavor compound, flavor profile, but a very strong woody flavor.
But I think also it's wonderful to taste the differences because people don't often realize how different areas can provide such various flavors.
In the same manner as wine. So you would have your typical Rooibos blend that is sold. Our teas are exported a lot. Rooibos and honeybush only grow in South Africa. Like you mentioned, it's part of the fynbos biome. Yeah. So it's indigenous to South Africa, but it only grows here. They've tried to cultivate it elsewhere. And then very big news about our Rooibos, which I find very exciting. It was granted geographical protection by the European Union in May. So what that means, that's a lot of big words, but what it actually means, in the same way that you're only allowed to call Champagne or MCC from Champagne region in France, you're only allowed to call that spa or that MCC Champagne. Yeah. Only Rooibos from South Africa will ever be allowed to be called Rooibos. And that's the first African product that was granted geographical protection.
That's very, very special.
That is, and especially, it's very exciting.
When you think also the small area that it comes from.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's very exciting. And you mentioned the tannins and the mouthfeel. So Rooibos and honeybush are both, well, it's well known that it's regarded as a healthy tea, but they're both low in tannins, as opposed to your green and your black tea, but it's also naturally caffeine-free. So automatically, it's something you can consume at night. It's safe for a lot of people who need to avoid caffeine. And then you have the sweet taste associated with that.
Yeah, it's lovely. This is really beautiful.
It's very unique. It's definitely my favorite honeybush tea that I've ever tasted.
Great. So Debora, I'm going to have a look, see if anybody has sent any questions.
I'll have a quick taste.
Not yet. but you're welcome to send your questions because we're really keen to keep the conversation going. I prefer honeybush to rooibos as well, and it's not often that one finds these in the shops. So I think it's really great for people to know that we have our own products, but you can also buy these online, which is great. And just how seasonal also the flavors are. So this year's blend will be different to next year's blend. And I'm definitely going to stock up.
Yeah, this is a very good one that we have at the moment for the honeybush.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. I went to the shops in the last month to buy honeybush, and it's a lot smaller. I'm very familiar with the industry and the product, but it's really hard to find honeybush, and it's hard to find good honeybush.
Yes.
So yeah, this for me, it's easily available and it's something easy that I can buy.
Yeah, great. So I, as you know, like dealing with herbs for teas. And my story is that I grew up with a father who used to always be at home on a Sunday and he'd make a big pot of black tea. And it always gave us this kind of strange jittery taste and feeling. And I always thought it was just because I was nervous of going to school the next day. But in time I realized it was the caffeine. And we just weren't used to caffeine. And we just had this like strange vibe on a Sunday, which didn't really help with anxiety, but never mind. Luckily, the rest of the week we had herbal teas to drink. So I don't do very well with caffeine. It's great for me that now I actually make a big pot of herbal tea every morning. And it really kind of sets the scene for the day. I kind of check in with myself, how do I feel in the morning? And I would go gather some fresh herbs in the garden, find whatever in the cupboard to add to it. I often actually like taking almost the symbolism of the plants. I would have some root, some leaves, flower petals, and even some seeds or fruit. This morning I added some black pepper to my rose petals.
Oh, wow.
And I had a bit of rosemary in there so I could have clear thoughts as we have our discussion today. But it's really just bringing all these elements together. And I find that then having this pot that I take with me during the day is just this bit of comfort that leads the way. And yeah, it's really what I need, and I feel is great. I think this ability to be so versatile, to adjust with the seasons, to see, also just check in with oneself, get that feeling of how does one have to take care of oneself.
So it's not you don't have the same herbal tea every morning as part of your morning ritual. You would adapt that
exactly
to season and how you're feeling.
Yes. Yeah,
that's
of course,
amazing.
Some seasons that I think, some plants are more predominant, but I would adjust it accordingly. And I think it's also nice to know with herbal teas that are specifically made for medicinal purposes that you only drink it when you're not feeling well.
Okay.
So we have been promoting recently this kind of medicinal herbal box, and it's the cold and flu season. So the most simplest traditional herbs that I generally go to for a cold and flu is thyme and sage. Now, thyme grows very easily. Sage is a little bit tricky in our Cape winters, but we like to be able to promote plants that are perennial and easy to grow. So thyme here, I would happily add whenever I feel my immune dropping. It's wonderful as an antiseptic.
I had no idea because I'm very drawn to thyme this time of the year, and I really like the smell.
Yes.
But I haven't thought of adding that specifically for cold and flu.
And it's great because often very common herbs we use for cooking is excellent to put into your tea. Oregano, rosemary, thyme, sage, I would use them in combinations because you don't really want to drink soup.
Nope.
But the thyme is excellent. Actually, I'll start making here a demo so you can see.
Yeah, I would love to see because for me, I'm very eager to include herbs in my tea more often, but I'm not sure about the amounts in which would be okay to use and safe. There's always all those questions.
Yeah. So I'm making now enough for 2 cups. We've got this pot over here with boiled water inside it. I usually would actually use a finger length for every cup of tea that I make.
Oh, that's very clever.
Yeah, it's very simple.
It's like a natural measure for your own body.
Exactly, and it's traditionally how people used to do medicinal mixes. So people have different heights and lengths, and that's why your finger is quite useful, different for your child to you. Same with these. This is a Artemisia afra. So Wilde
Yes,
Als.
I know that one.
One leaf is more or less for a starter sufficient to make 1 cup. So I'll just add 2 leaves over here. If you're kind of more getting used to it, you can use a little bit more.
Okay.
But for now, I think, just a leaf each is perfect.
Artemisia. So what is a common name for that in English?
It's African wormwood.
Wormwood.
So wormwood is really to help get rid of pesticides or pests and worms in the stomach.
Yes.
And digestive
Parasites. Yes.
Exactly. Those kind of issues. It's really good for antimicrobial action.
Okay.
Works really well in the chest and the stomach.
Okay.
It is bitter. So anything bitter is a warning that you don't want to have too much of it. It's also indication that it works with your liver. It helps to detox. And it's probably South Africa's most familiar traditional herb to use. A wonderful other ingredient, of course, is ginger. I know you love ginger. Exactly.
I love ginger.
So I just normally slice a few pieces here, and I take the back of my knife to...
I don't do that. Why do you do that?
Because slicing actually doesn't rupture your cells properly enough.
Okay.
So one actually just wants to get a nice, more breadth of your and depth of your root to actually be extracted.
Lovely smell.
Yeah, intense. But ginger is wonderful because it actually just opens the channels and makes sure that the tea goes to all the organs that it's needed.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
it's
add
brilliant.
the ginger as the health-giving element.
Yeah.
So it's actually more, it supports
Yes.
the other
exactly.
herbs.
Totally.
I have no idea.
And putting herbs in combination really works well as well. As if each element kind of helps to hold and brings the herbs to the fore.
So there's kind of a synergism between the different...
Yeah. Which is, this is a good kind of cold and flu remedy. But if you wanted to have a sleepy tea, it's nice to have maybe 3 different herbs that will, in combination, really help to ease you into sleep.
And the ginger, do you add it with the peel?
Yeah, no, totally.
I've
this
been
has
peeling mine. Okay.
No. It's like, potatoes. They say the best bit's in the peel as well. As long as
Absolutely.
it's clean.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got some boiling water here. So this is going to brew for at least, I like it quite strong, about 15 minutes.
Okay.
I think it's sufficient. And then we'll add our lemon juice.
I love
and we
lemon as
actually
well.
drink it. And I've got some honey a little bit later because bitter things often needs just a little bit of ease to be taken in. So we'll let that brew. I'll see if anybody else has some questions for us here. Oh, okay. Wait here. Carla asks, are there any other teas besides Rooibos and honeybush coming to Babylonstoren soon?
Good question. Well, we're always working on new products, like
Yeah.
We're always working on new products and new interesting ideas at Babylonstoren. So for now, there aren't any specifics, but watch the space. It's nothing that I can share right now, but we are always working on new products.
Well, I've been very excited. It's taken me about 2 years to propagate this one special plant. It's a Tagetes, a lucidas, for lucid thinking.
Oh, wow.
And we've just last week planted a whole lot more in the garden. So from the herbal side, I think it's very exciting. You also know that we welcome people to Babylonstoren, but there's the healing garden that I take care of.
Absolutely love.
Yeah, and it's just that experience that you can come to Babylonstoren, you can actually walk around, you can smell these herbs, and it's really in the scent that you can get the feeling whether it will work with you or not. And I think that's something that is unique, that one can really engage and get a reaction whether something actually suits you or not for that day.
Definitely. Yeah. And different things will suit you throughout different times.
Exactly.
Depending on what you need.
Yeah. And the sense of smell and tasting is just so good an indication whether, it's worth it or not.
But that's where I find the herbal tea workshop is so valuable that we do. It is amazing.
Unpacks everything and gives you the kind of the ease to just try things, throw things in a pot and feel what's good and safe. And
to feel comfortable to do that.
Yeah. So I think also very nice to know is that how easy it is to use common herbs. Like I said, I used rosemary in my tea this morning. And things don't always have to be exotic and unfamiliar. That there are also these ordinary herbs that we have in our backyards.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why we wanted to create these boxes for people to buy, because these herbs are perennial. It means they'll live for a few years.
Okay, brilliant.
And it means that when you're not feeling too well, you've got a cold, you know you've got a cold, but you don't want to run off to the chemist necessarily.
Absolutely.
Or to the doctor. And you've got something in your backyard that's toughy, strong, reliable, and you can just go and harvest yourself and put it in a pot.
Well, I'll definitely be getting some time to put in my garden.
Yeah.
To add to my ginger tea.
Exactly, yes.
And also the honey. Is there any specific honey that you like to add to your herbal tea, and any reason?
Yeah, well, this is orange blossom, which I find has quite a strong flavor of its own. I also use Feinbos honey because
I prefer the Feinbos honey.
Yeah.
Specifically with Rooibos and honeybush, because it pairs well. It's also a Feinbos.
Exactly, yes. It also depends on where you live. So, you know, it's best to buy from your own environment. But for me, it's also more important to add the honey only once you pour it into your cup. So you don't want the hot boiling water to take away the antibacterial properties that the honey
Of
actually
your raw
has.
honey. Yeah, that's
Exactly,
the whole purpose of
yes,
having
yes.
or using raw honey.
Yeah, similar to you adding the honey only later when you
Later in your herbal tea.
exactly cool down. So yeah, but it's all about the pairing.
Okay. Any more questions?
Let's see. Okay. Nicola asks, which variety of honeybush does one find here at Babylonstoren, and which herbs and juices will pair well with it when making iced tea?
Okay, so first one, we have Septonata, which is also traditionally called a flayed tea, a marshland tea, and then Longifolia. So for the honeybush species, the commercial ones are your Cyclopia intermedia, which is wild harvested. They can't cultivate it. But the two we plant, because it's we cultivate it, we grow it, Septonata and Longifolia. And talking about the herbs, you take another taste, and I would like to hear from you.
Yeah.
For me, this tea has a floral aroma. Specifically, I don't know if you can pick up the rose geranium. It's quite faint.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a bit of a rose geranium.
Yeah.
Would you add in the iced tea if you want to do more of a herbal iced tea?
I love rose pelargonium. It's one of my favorites, and it's very, very soothing and comforting.
Okay. And that's something you can just add to your tea?
Exactly, yes.
I would consider that in a hot honeybush as well.
Yeah, I think either or, it doesn't matter, but it's a beauty.
I think that would be a very good combination. And what I've done for the Rooibos one, I've added some cinnamon quills. And
I think you're right.
for the kids, this is a lovely flavor. The citrus, the cinnamon, honey. I added a bit of honey as well. Simple and lots of vitamin C, very healthy iced tea drink. Much lower in sugar than your store-bought ones.
Yes.
And because you have the raw honey and your vitamin C from the citrus juice and the tea, it's actually a wonderful way to get them to consume healthy beverage.
But I also think in summer I know that I often make an iced tea with Rooibos tea that we share with the visitors who come on the garden tours. And it works really well with all those chai spices, you know.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So you were adding the cinnamon.
Cinnamon, yes.
But all those kind of star anise, cardamom, pepper.
But that's what I would go with the honeybush.
Is it?
Not the pomegranate that like I did with the iced tea here. Maybe I think cumin I would pair with a honeybush one.
Yeah, nice. Great. Okay, let's see. Carolina asks, how do you brew the perfect cup of Rooibos tea?
Definitely heat your pot. Boil your water, heat your pot. Don't be in a rush. I like my Rooibos tea very strong. So I would do 2 bags for a cup.
Okay.
Very strong. Sometimes 3, depending on where I bought it and what the blend is.
Yes.
And
also probably depending on how long you know you can brew it for. You know, if you're on a rush, you're going to add more tea bags.
But I do find that my cup tastes a lot better when I wait while the kettle is boiling.
Right.
You don't stop and do something else. You pause. Because it's no use making a good cup of tea if you're not going to taste it.
Yeah.
And then 5 to 10 minutes. Don't do it in 2 minutes. Don't take out your tea bags too soon. And a good quality tea.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
And I also like the pot that you're using now.
Yes.
When you can see the color.
Yeah.
For the honeybush blend that we have at the moment, it's got a beautiful color, and the Rooibos as well. Some teas don't have a good color in the cup, but they are often a good flavor profile. So it's not necessarily an indication of your flavor, but I prefer a beautiful red color because that's what we traditionally associate with our Rooibos.
Yeah.
Or a beautiful pot. You know, these are, I enjoy serving and having tea from a beautiful pot. There's a lot of debate about whether to add milk or not. I feel do what you feel comfortable with. There's no significant scientific evidence that shows that it takes away any health properties when you add milk.
Yeah.
I see how I feel with your herbal tea mix that you do. Sometimes I add milk, sometimes I don't. Lately, I have not been adding milk at all because I've been doing training on the flavor profiles of Rooibos and honeybush.
Yes.
So every time I have the tea, I want to pinpoint what I'm tasting.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the value out of this is also, as you say, pausing to wait for the kettle to boil. It's really about taking the time to enjoy the ritual. And whether it's a cup for yourself or whether you're inviting people to share it with you, it's how does it, the tea just bonds everything. Yes. It either just holds yourself together or it allows your friends and your family to actually be close together. And I think taking time to enjoy that ritual is almost what we need to remember.
But also lately I've been, when people come to visit, I make them honeybush. And when they leave, I give them tea bags. It's very special for me to share what I'm learning about the flavor profiles of the tea. Yeah. And I love to share that. So what do you do, or how do you brew the perfect cup of Rooibos? For me, that would be take the time, have a good tea, a beautiful pot, and share it with the people you love.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I know there's another question that's come in. Marisa's asked, does the cup that you drink the tea from affect the taste?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? No.
Do you have a favorite shape?
I have many favorites, but I love cups. But I think when it comes to specific cup.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, we had a ceramicist who actually made specific cups for us for sale here at Babylonstoren. And she'd done a lot of research. And it was really this traditional old English style cup that works really well, this kind of open, wide mouth that it has. And I think it's that your nose can actually fit in.
Absolutely. It's the same with a wine glass, you know, when you can fit in, you can fully appreciate the flavors, the aromas.
Yeah. And it's also to do with having your tea cool enough that you can actually taste it, that it's not all kept inside and hot. But I'm also quite specific on my thin porcelain cups. My favorite cups. Now, I think this is brewed well enough.
Definitely. While you pour that, I just wanted to point out that I'm seeing the book now that I want to refer to.
There you go.
So in the book, I refer to the Rooibos and the honeybush that we're growing here at Babylonstoren. And there's some beautiful photos. We've recently launched this book, Invitation to Tea, which I think is an exquisite thing to do at tea time. I invited some friends over. We looked through the book. Beautiful images and also recipes and ideas of what to do with tea.
Yeah.
And some beautiful photos of our specific tea that we grow here at Babylonstoren.
Please, would you show them the image of the Rooibos tea plantation? Because not many people get to go up the mountain. But it's I think we marked
just find it quickly. You did
there,
mark it.
there.
Oh,
yeah,
here we are.
Have a look.
It's such a
Gorgeous.
beautiful image of, and not a lot of people know what this plant looks like. You know, we grew up having this tea, and it's so traditional South African and so proudly South African, but not a lot of people know what it looks like. So I think some beautiful images in this book.
Yeah. So what's also really interesting in this, and that we've been doing down at Herbal recently, is actually having cheese and tea pairings. That's really exciting.
Sure, I have to say that's I really enjoyed it. We had a tea workshop with the launch of the book, and we did the tea and cheese tasting, and included so obviously that's your traditional, your black tea and your green tea with specific cheeses, but also our South African herbal teas with cheeses that we produce here. So it was a very interesting tasting, and I learned a lot from that. And also in the book, there's some pointers of how to do that and what works well.
But it's most unusual combinations.
Very.
Not something I would normally think
You
of.
wouldn't expect that.
Yeah. Great. So here you can add some of your lemon juice there.
Definitely.
Okay. Now I know you're not ill, so luckily you don't need much of this. But this just to get the idea of some
Ooh, and
strong
lemon
medicinal herb.
Lemon and honey already feels like...
Yeah, great combination. Yes.
Sure, this is very good. Often I feel like I have an aversion to the wilde als.
Yeah. It's strong.
It can be very strong in that bitterness, so I think it's also important to let your body guide you as to what you need. Today I feel very comfortable drinking this, whereas sometimes I would just feel I can't have it at all.
Absolutely, yeah. No, this is a very strong character. So again, it's treat something with caution and use it where it's really needed.
And also trust your instinct.
Totally.
To guide you as to what is okay for you or not.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Shanae asks, how often should you drink your herbal tea to really see the benefits?
So will you can answer on the herbal tea, and I will answer on the Rooibos and honeybush.
Yeah. In terms of herbal teas, well, I drink every day, and I tend to love my rose pelargonium, but I often think I'm so friendly and cheerful because I drink so much rose pelargonium, so I don't even wait for the bad effects to come. When it's really in terms of medicinal issues that you're dealing with, I definitely also think one needs to seek guidance from a medicinal practitioner. I've learned a lot by just engaging with different real plant practitioners, herbalists, and it's then really that you're setting into a program. If I'm having a cold, I would drink this tea that we've made for the duration of the cold, so let's say 3 or 4 days, and I would stop immediately. If it's an issue like that, I would pause at least for 10 days and then start drinking the same concoction, for a few days afterwards. But I need a pause in between. If it's really strong herbs, even things like bohu that people often drink quite a lot, I would take a pause in between. And that's why with my normal drinks, I like to adjust through the weeks. I would never really have the same thing all the time. With sleep time and nervous issues, issues that a lot of people had, and they feel safe with their chamomile, then you get into the rhythm of knowing whether you need to have it how far before you go into bed.
Absolutely.
And it's really also about checking your own reactions. So we are all so different, and I think that's what's important with using these herbs is honouring that and knowing that we need different ways of taking in the things that will help us. And that's why I think guidance from a real proper practitioner does help. But it's about easing life, really. One
using it as a tool.
Exactly. Yeah.
But also too, I would say depending on what you want to achieve.
Yes.
If you set out to achieve, say for instance, a cleanse or a detox, you would use it in a different way than you would use it when you have a cold.
Yeah.
So I think people want clear prescription on how to use a certain aid, but you need to go back and get more in touch with your own needs and what you want to achieve before you can apply it and use it as a tool. Because
it's all actually about balancing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's we have to maintain consistently. Yeah.
And the same with the Rooibos and honeybush. Recently there was a study published recommending 5 cups a day to see an impact on... I easily drink 5 cups a day. It's not a lot. Yeah. But 5 cups a day to see an impact on people with a risk for heart disease. So that's it. But that's a general guideline. I mean, it's you don't need to drink 5 cups a day for the rest of your life.
Yes. Good.
Interesting question.
I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Carla asks, why do we add lemon and honey after we're adding the other ingredients? So the boiling water is very, very strong. Yeah. And it will extract the chemicals within the leaves, but it will kill off the benefits of the honey.
Of your raw honey.
Yes.
Yeah.
So generally one would like to get raw honey, because otherwise it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
And then, if it's been made to be running continuously, then it's definitely not necessarily raw. So it depends on where you actually buy your honey to know whether it's raw or not. But the raw honey has the benefits in actually being able to give you the health for hay fever and
allergies in your area.
Exactly. So, and the lemon juice I just add later because then I'm going to cool the brew down while it's actually extracting the chemicals.
Okay, I didn't realise that. And is there impact on the pH, the acidity? I just instinctively added later to gauge the taste.
A lot of the herbs that I brew actually are wonderful because they change colour when I add the lemon.
Oh, wow.
So there are quite a few herbs that really become purple and magnificent or rosy when I add the honey.
For instance.
Yeah, that's dramatic.
Yeah.
But there are quite a few other herbs that really also do this lovely colour change. So it's very nice to see the kind of the surprise when you're adding into your cup and then the lemon juice making this slightly chemical reaction.
And that also becomes a beautiful interactive ritual.
Yeah.
You know, when you do that.
Yes. I know we're not familiar with those Japanese ceremonies, the tea ceremonies, where it's really about the progress from the pot to your cup to your mouth. But it's fun playing with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Okay, let's see. Nicola asks, do you prefer a tea bag or loose tea?
Oh, yeah. So I grew up with a loose tea in a teapot, but now I use tea bags.
Yeah.
I think when the industry started out, I remember the Rooibos industry is not that young, but it's relatively young, and then the honeybush industry is very young still.
Yeah.
So my thinking, and I don't know if I'm correct, but this is just what I'm thinking, is that you were only able to get your better teas in a loose tea. Not everything was available in a bag, but now I find that a lot of the good quality teas are available in bags. So I find, I buy tea bags. Yeah. I think loose tea is best.
Yeah, I'm suspicious of tea bags.
Okay.
But
it adds extra material, and there could be hidden chemicals in there, and there could be all kinds of materials.
At times they don't even compost well.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
But also because I blend so much. But I think for the ease of normal people and for the speed, tea bags do really help.
And also I travel. When I travel, I take my tea. I take my Rooibos and honeybush everywhere I go. I never travel without tea. So, and to be able to do it in a hotel room or when you're traveling, tea bag is the only way you're really going to do that. Yeah. Because unless I travel with my pot and everything else. So.
Yeah. So it's always, again, nice for people to know that we have fresh leaves that people can come and pick here in our healing garden and come and experience. Even now during lockdown, the restaurants are closed, but you can come and smell and get a sense of these leaves, the herbs, to try and maybe grow at home. And then we've got all these lovely boxes, and sometimes we even make these lovely fresh herbal bunches that we sell in the shop. So
it is a musty.
Yeah.
And you can buy the honey also from the shop. You can buy lemons from our shop.
That's true. So I just think what is really nice is there are different ways for everybody to engage in this wonderful tea ceremony. Okay. Karen asks, can you use any herbs for herbal teas, or are there some that you shouldn't use? So there are many herbs one shouldn't use.
But how do you know? I think that for me is because I would love to make more herbal tea, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think what's also important for people to know, at Babylonstoren we focused on what is edible and medicinal, and we want everything to be edible and safe.
Yes.
But most people generally in their gardens at home, almost all the ornamental plants they have is actually poisonous. So we often live amongst trees and shrubs that are actually really toxic. But we're safe amongst them because we're not munching on them all the time.
Yeah. Because I do also want to, at home, I want to walk into the garden and pick things and prepare my tea. But I've got poison ivy. So, this is not going to work.
Yeah. So I think it's really good to go back to the basic herbs that are also easy, the ones that you use for cooking that are easy to use. There are some wonderful, we spoke a lot of the rose pelargonium, the lemon verbena. easy herbs, and people can also
and the time,
add, but there are many herbs that have different ways one should take it. So also different parts. Buchu, for example, you can only harvest when it's not in flower, because when it's in flower or seed, it sends out other chemicals to prevent the antelope from eating it.
Okay.
So one has to really make sure when you're harvesting yourself that there are only a few plants that do this, but that you're actually taking the right part of the plant. Cancer bush, for example, also a really healthy drink to have when you need it, but you would really only take the leaves and not ever the flowers or the seeds, because they're just extra potent.
Yeah.
So I think those are tips one should really take into consideration. And there, for example, foxgloves that you only take if you're having a heart attack. So herbs generally have always been used to help people with ailments, but it depends on what you're dealing with. So some things are completely just not touched. And then there are many herbs that we are so familiar. I mean, always with scalp chops, you have your rosemary, There's you can't have the one without the other. So there are many, many safe herbs that we're familiar with that we can experiment with and also play with.
I think if you use fresh herbs that you cook with, they're safe. So that would be a good starting point.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And then just seeing what's available in nurseries, and not all nursery people know what they're selling, but people who really do sell herbs should be able to give you some advice as well. What's interesting, sometimes some combinations with the real medicinal herbs don't work well. Like rue is very potent, and you wouldn't mix it necessarily with Wilde-Als.
No.
But that's when you get to strong things. And in general, I think the teas we tend to use for comfort and for pleasure are very, very safe to use. And also different ages. There's lemon balm is probably one of the safest herbs you can give to young babies as well as old people. So there's some things, teas that we know are really, really safe to use. With pregnant women, there's also caution. So I would be very cautious to really say anything to a pregnant lady, and that's where one is very careful. Also, when people go to have operations, you don't want to have much herbal teas before any operation.
Or when you're taking other medication.
Exactly.
Very important. There could be interference.
Yes.
Yeah. But a good starting point would be attending our herbal tea workshop, because that really guides you into how to do it every day.
Yeah.
For me, that was very helpful.
That's right, yes. And even that's the app Candide that we've been using quite a lot.
Yes.
It's just all these platforms where you can very easily get your answers quite quickly. And there are many gardeners on that. So we have learned a lot from our experience here, and of course also with knowledge that comes through the ages. I mean, we know how much knowledge comes with Rooibos tea.
That's the thing, and that's how we know it's safe. There's just traditional use for many years, and the same with the honeybush. There's never been toxic or bad effects.
Yeah, and if you think how much people drink coffee and black tea, a lot of these herbs are even safer to use.
Yes.
Yeah. So nice. Good. Oh heavens. No.
Lots of questions.
No, I think how it comes up again. Okay. No, that's it. Right. Good. So I wonder, which of all these beverages have we enjoyed the most? I almost want to taste them all again to get started with, but they're so different in their characters.
Absolutely, and different applications. But ultimately, I'm still a fan of my plain honeybush.
Oh, this is delicious. Yeah, the honeybush was sublime.
It's a lovely honeybush. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Debora.
I really enjoyed our tea party,
yes,
Gundula.
Well, I think we're going to continue here and just finish all our cups here. Maybe brew another pot again.
Definitely. There are many different combinations that I want to try, and I'm going to start adding more herbs to my ginger for sure.
So thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see some of you here at Babylonstoren sometime soon. Enjoy gardening your gardens, because these herbs will flourish with winter now, unless you're living somewhere very cold and frosty. Here in the Cape, these herbs will just lap up the rain. And we hope to hear some of your tea stories one day soon. Thank you.
Thank you.